You're listening to The Jeff Crilley Show on Talk Radio 1190.
Welcome back to the final segment of the Jeff Crilley Show. We're going to be talking about the pharmacy industry with a couple of old friends of mine, Mike and Dr. Donna Barsky. Welcome to the Jeff Crilley Show.
Thanks for having us.
They are co-founders and owners of Texas Star Pharmacy. That's in Plano. And I think one of the things that really strikes me about what you guys did, because you launched this in 2006, that's about the time that really, Walgreens and CVS and they're really kind of dominating things. But you opened up kind of a good old-fashioned pharmacy. Let's talk about that.
Well, I call it a real pharmacy. We do a little bit of everything, but there again, I was raised in a city that had 3 independent pharmacies, so I knew what pharmacy should be. Big box pharmacy wasn't it. Matter of fact, when I first got out of school, I worked for the big box pharmacy for 2 years and said, I'm done. If that's what pharmacy is like, I'm not doing this anymore. Right. So Mike in his infinite wisdom said, well, if you're not going to do that, you need to find something that you do like. But I started doing pharmacy relief service with all of the independents in the Metroplex. That made a big difference. I knew what I wanted to do. I knew eventually I would open my own pharmacy, and that we did in 2006.
Wow. So, Mike, I know this was a kind of a leap of faith because launching any business, no matter what industry, is tough. Tell us about the early days and about now. I mean, because you just celebrated, I guess you celebrated 10 years last year.
Yeah. Basically, my background, I'm an engineer, and I was kind of ready to retire back then when she wanted to open the store up. So she took me in kicking and dragging. But since then, I've learned a lot. I like being an entrepreneur. I had a few other companies on the engineering side myself. But the fact of trying to help people, and once I really understood what the business was, is great. And the partnership is good because she knows how to take care of the people, and I know how to run the business, which works really well.
Outstanding. Well, and there is another difference about you guys, other than just kind of like locally owned, family operated. It's a compounding pharmacy, and why don't you explain what that is?
Well, and a lot of people do not understand what compounding is. It's basically customized medication. If I have a patient that can't swallow, let's just say that they have cancer. They can't swallow their medications, but they need something for pain. A lot of times the doctors will switch them to a liquid. But there again, if they're not unable to swallow, that's kind of a problem. But yet I can make something that they can rub on the wrist. It'll absorb into the bloodstream, and they get the effect that they need without having to choke something down.
Wow. So you're really a chemist. You're a scientist in a way.
A lot of times we are, and there's so many different options for patients now that they didn't have before. If I've got another patient, I've had pediatrics that had tonsils out. They wouldn't even swallow their own saliva. So what we made for them was a tetracaine lollipop that they only had to suck on for about 30 seconds. It numbs that throat so that they will at least take their medication and or eat. So that helps.
There's not a compounding pharmacist on every street corner, is there, Mike?
No, it's a relatively small industry. Right now, as far as independents go, there's about 22,000 out of, I think it's 56,000 pharmacies that are independents. Most of them you find in the small towns like Gun Barrel City, Texas, and like that.
Right.
Within that 22,000, a very small percentage are compounders, and there's very few, what I'd say, most of them are closet compounders, just do a couple of compounds here and there.
Well, one of the things that, I'm a big fan of the Mayberry RFD show and Andy Griffin, and you kind of you strike me as kind of a throwback that you know your customers, and you know their mama, and you know their dada.
Mm-hmm. That we do.
And that's important, isn't it?
It's very important. I mean, they're part of my pharmacy family. Basically, I know what's going on in their life. I try to keep up with them as best I can. And I know what their dogs are doing because I have their medications on board. I know what their children are doing. And if their children end up in college or if they're having issues, we do go through a lot of that. I mean, the people that I hire in my pharmacy, I hire them for heart. I can train them to do a job.
Absolutely.
But they've got to have that empathy for the patients who walk through the door because we see a lot of end of life as well. Yes. So we have to be able to respond to those patients and give them help that they need so that they can exit this world on a more comfortable basis.
Absolutely.
Jeff, I'd add to that, what makes us a lot different is because of our compounding and a unique way we can do things. Most of the industry, especially the big boxes, are like a fast food restaurant. They're order takers and they fill the order. We don't do that. We get into collaboration with the doctors and the patient so we can actually get, and that's why it's important to know the patient, know their lifestyle, so we can actually look at the root cause of any issues. In reality, we try to get people off of meds and treat them naturally. We have a clinical nutritionist on staff.
And you know how medicine interacts with each other. So if somebody comes to you with a prescription for a couple of things that, you know, could be bad for them,
I've seen some of that.
Have you?
Yeah, but basically I knew the patient very well, and so when I saw the medication, I realized that wasn't the best thing that they could do. And a lot of times I'll just call the doctor and say, look, I know this patient has this issue. Can we just switch this to such and such? And a lot of times they'll agree.
Right.
It's just that I have known them, and I try to keep up with some of their issues because they're going to have issues. And now it is so incredibly wonderful that we have pharmacogenetics. So you may have a patient that has high blood pressure. Well, the doctor starts them on one medication. If that doesn't get it done, then they add another and add another and add another. And it's typical to find a blood pressure medication on a patient to be 3 or 4, sometimes even 5 medications. Now we can test that individual and find out what they're not metabolizing. So we can pick the right medication to begin with and not end up with 5 or 6 medications.
I know that this past year we saw so many celebrity deaths that were related to abusing often prescription drugs. And I know one of the things you guys are passionate about is the responsibility of the pharmaceutical industry and pharmacists and doctors for policing that. So let's talk about that a little bit. What with technology, it's all in the computer these days, isn't it?
Oh, absolutely. And not only that, if we have a new patient that walks through the door and they've got 3 prescriptions for pain meds, we can go to the state of Texas is actually kind of ahead of the game. We have a base that we can go to on the internet and pull up that patient with that birth date and find out what they filled in the last month.
Wow.
So if we've got a patient that's jumping pharmacies and jumping doctors, we can find out right away.
And what do you do with that information?
Well, I'll add to that as basically, I tell you right now, we just got an award a little while ago from the City of Plano Police Department for the most arrests in the city.
That's awesome.
We actually helped them break a big ring of narcotic abusers.
Congratulations.
So we're really
awesome.
fervent about that, of getting that stuff off the street. I'm sure you've heard about farm parties. It's PHARM, where kids take drugs from their parents' closets and medicine cabinets and think it's safe and overdose. That's the biggest reason of overdose.
They call it doctor shopping. Tell us about that, and then how do you catch them?
Well, doctor shopping, I mean, the doctors don't always talk to one another. I mean, there's a million doctors out there that can hit them from south part of Dallas all the way to the north part of Frisco. But what they'll do is they'll go to one doctor and then they'll find a pharmacy, usually in that area, to fill that prescription. And since there's so many pharmacies in the area, then they can just hit or miss. I mean, they can go to one and they'll say, well, we don't have it, and they just keep on going until they get it filled. Then the next day, they'll probably go to another doctor somewhere else in the Metroplex and get another prescription because they go in with pain, and then they have to find a pharmacy to get that. So what all of these things do is when we fill a prescription for a narcotic or any kind of controlled substance, it goes into our data banks, and our data banks are sent into the state all the time. So when we get a new patient that's got this, we always check it. And we just go there, find out what they've had in the last month, and usually we'll find 4 or 5 doctors, and we usually give them a call.
Wow, good for you. I mean, to me, that it's just old-fashioned taking responsibility, and I think a lot of people in your industry might just look the other way and just say, hey, that's not my problem.
Well, it's easier. It's easier. I'll be honest with you, a lot of the big box pharmacies don't do anything because it's easier.
Yeah.
They don't want their pharmacists tied up doing anything like that.
Right. Well, let's get back to kind of your overall philosophy about running the business and becoming a family with your customers, because I know you both have a very kind and gentle heart, and you like to see people that you know frequent your pharmacy, don't you?
I do, and we never put a drive-through in, and that's the reason why. We want to know our patients. And if you have a drive-through, you never see them, you never talk to them, you don't know what's going on in their lives. So how can you help them? But a lot of times if they walk through the door, I can tell just by the look on their face if they're having a bad day. And that's when I usually go over, give them a big hug and say, okay, let me know what's going on. And so that's part of it.
It's also a fun place to work. Tell us about your employees.
Our employees are wonderful. Quite honestly, they're the biggest group of genuine individuals ever. And yes, they're there to do a job, but they're also there to take care of the patient. Because by the time they get to us, they've been in a doctor's office for a couple of hours. The doctor told them something that they didn't want to hear, gave them a prescription for a medication they didn't want to take, and they came to us and their insurance isn't paying for it.
Right.
So it's a very, very frustrating time, for the patient. So it's our job to make sure that we let them know that we're going to take care of this. We're going to do the best we can. We'll do a prior authorization. In the meantime, I'll call the doctor and see if he wants to try something else.
Yes.
And what we do with our employees, just the same as we do with our customers, they become part of our family. We're mom and dad, and we take care of them. And if they need to have anything fixed in their personal life, whatever it is, whether it's getting rid of a boyfriend they don't like or whatever, we handle that. So we are actually mom and dad. We're usually a little older than most of our employees.
Have you thought about multiple locations, or do you want to stay small?
We actually had 2 pharmacies, and just in January of 16, we sold the other one so we can focus on this one. And we're doing a lot of new programs now because we don't have to run back and forth. So we've actually expanded the business beyond where it was with the 2.
Oh, that's awesome. Okay, for people who've never been there, where are you located?
We're on the intersection of Independence and Parker on the northeast corner facing Parker. We've been there since 2006. But we have people that come in all the time going, gosh, when did you open? I didn't know you were here. But, we've got the big, huge sign that says Texas Star Pharmacy didn't warn you at all.
And another thing I know about you guys is you don't believe that the answer to everybody's problem is found in a pill. And so if somebody comes in and there is a non-pharmaceutical remedy, you're going to advise that as well.
Yeah, that's why we have a clinical nutritionist on staff. You won't find that in very many pharmacies because our goal is actually to get people off of medication. We try to treat them naturally, and even with our compounds, they're all plant-based. They're not synthetic. So the hydrocodone epidemic is a good example. We make a topical pain cream that you don't have to run through your body and your kidneys, and there's no side effects, and hopefully have the doctors switch people to that and get them off of hydrocodone.
And we've got about 2 minutes left, so talk about your skincare line.
Oh, well, skincare line, that's Silver Skin by Dr. Donna. And basically I made it for me. And because it was working so well, I had patients who were coming in. They're going, okay, you're going to have to tell us, what are you doing? Wow. What are you doing with your skin? But we tested it on patients, and it worked out very well. So I made it so that for patients who are getting to be perimenopausal or postmenopausal that are having issues with their skin, then it's going to take care of that problem. But it also is very anti-aging. So I use it day and night. It works all the time. And for the longest time, I sold it in ugly bottles. I mean, they didn't care what the bottle looked like. They just knew it was working.
Wow.
So then we hired a manufacturer to go ahead and manufacture the products. And now they come in, and they're pretty bottles. Wow. But it's still the same product.
Well, I wish we had more time. Unfortunately, we're out of time. Give us the website.
Website is www.texasstarpharmacy.com. And our email, if you so desire to email us, is rx@texasstarpharmacy.com.
And we're also on Facebook and LinkedIn.
Okay. Well, thank you so much. We're out of time, but we'll see everybody next week.
Nice to be here.
That was wonderful.